Hello, Pod Smashers of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of
80-bit Pod Smash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts.
Penguin and Termite. I am Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right, and tonight I sound normal, unlike last week where my voice sounded muffled. I don't know if it was...
so much better. So much better.
I'm
and
glad.
Always.
I'm glad. I don't really know what happened last week. I have a theory as to what happened, but I don't know exactly what was for sure. So if you
that
haven't
Raggedy
listened...
Mike situation you had going on as well.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to... It's all in an effort. This is all because I'm nomadic right now, right? Because, like, my
That's
daughter...
True. You don't have an office.
Is occupying my office, right, until she moves in with her brother when she's old enough. So in the meantime, I'm just a nomad. Like, I've worked in every room in the house at different points since she's been born, except for the bathrooms. And I've recorded in multiple different locations as well, trying to figure out what's best. The problem is any room that's not a bedroom in this house has really high ceilings and is kind of echoey. So I have to do that. And so hence I am in... So anyways, if you haven't listened to last week's episode on the on positivity in gaming, then if you do listen to it, you'll notice I was muffled. And for those who did listen to it, I apologize for my weird sound quality. Sometimes you don't actually know it's bad until you listen to it and you're like, well, crap. So for more testing. Anyways, we are, as Termite said, we're a video game podcast smashing together ideas you care about. Tonight we're going to be talking about Metroid in honor of the release of Metroid Dread this week. That's what we're going to be talking tonight. Our everything episodes, we haven't gotten to do one in a while, but we picked a franchise and we talk about all the things we love about it, all of our favorites and our, like, what is our rankings. We'll talk a little bit about the game itself, its history, its origins, how it came to be, and how it's definitive and how it's, why it's one of the, best franchises out there, enough for us to want to cover it. So we'll get into all of that and more, but first we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So what are you drinking tonight, Termite?
Much like you with the repeats, I'm coming in with another pumpkin ale tonight, and it's because I had that massive 28-pack that I bought like 3 or 4 weeks ago that I'm still working my way through slowly. So I'm drinking another Dogfish Head pumpkin ale.
That's great, because I'm drinking another Woodfucker. I promise
this has to be your last one, though, right?
No. I still have 2 more, but I do want to try to drink those extracurricular activities, which will force me to go get new beer.
I'm actually headed to Dogfish Head proper this weekend, so I'll be picking up something different. Maybe I'll bring something back for the show.
That would be nice, yes. Yeah. Well, I thought you meant for me.
We aren't in person, so...
I know, and we're not ever going to be in person again!
Nope.
At least not regularly, so...
Right.
C'est la vie. Well, cool. So anyways, if you want to hear more about the beers we're drinking...
Previous episodes.
Yeah, I was going to say, previous episodes, we go more in depth on them, but, yours is a pumpkin ale. That's called Punkin Ale.
Yeah.
And mine is a brown ale from Strange Ways. Belgian-style brown ale. So, both fall beers and both delicious. Yeah. Cool. I did want to take up sort of some of our, quote, banter time while we're talking about fall and Oktoberfest and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It is officially, as of the point that people are listening to this, it's officially October. Yay, October.
All right. Speaking of Oktoberfest.
Exactly. It is my, it's spooky month. So we've got, of course, 80-bit Pod, some 80-bit Pod Smash stuff planned. I will repeat. We talked about this last week. We talked about it on our news show a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
But just a reminder, we're not doing any more streaming on Twitch for a little while we settle some of the craziness that's happening in our personal lives. So don't be expecting any like spooky Halloween streams, unfortunately, which sucks. But we will still be doing this podcast, of course. And part and parcel of that, we will be doing our Monster Smash at the end of the month, the week before Halloween. You can get excited. We'll pump you up. We've already picked our monster. We're talking about werewolves this year.
Werewolves.
I'm very excited. Yeah,
that came out really different. I didn't understand what you said. It took a second. Werewolves.
Werewolf bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
Spooky, scary. It's my favorite song in the world.
Oh, yeah.
It's not actually my favorite, but it's fun. Anyways, the other thing I wanted to talk about, though, if you do want to get in the spooky Halloween mood and you still want Penguin and Termite in your life, Penguin is hosting for the entire month of October. I am hosting a miniature Return to Yharnam event. I recently announced this on our social medias.
You did.
It's in honor of me discovering a love for Soulsborne games last year when I played Bloodborne for the first time for the podcast stream. So I figured I'd honor all of that and orient this around the podcast. I was planning to do a playthrough of Bloodborne this month anyways, so I'm extending the invitation for all of you to discover or rediscover a love for this game alongside me And again, open invitation as long as I'm available and my personal life and circumstances allow it. And you reach out to me on Discord or social media, or, if you know me personally, you can text me, I guess. I will join you for a co-op or PvP session or whatever you want. And if you're going into Yharnam and going to be playing and want some company, I will be there. I'm available for any questions for newcomers, build ideas, suggestions, strategies, anything you could possibly want. I am here for it. And Termite, if you want to as well, you're obviously welcome to the extension. The invitation is extended to you, of course, as well. But if you would love to return to Yharnam with me, folks, then I would be happy to play.
Any Soulsborne game? So
no, sorry, this is specifically Bloodborne.
Okay, is that what Yharnam is the setting?
Yeah, Yharnam is the city. Though again, I'm open. If you wanted to, again, if you're like, I don't like that it's 30 frames per second,
you're in 1080p.
I would get into some Demon Souls as well, but my emphasis is specifically a Blood. That's what I'm going to be playing and have a character ready to go on. So but the invitation is a little bit more open than that if you want. But yes, my emphasis is Bloodborne because it's the perfect Halloween game. It's so much fun. So, anyways, please join me and let me know. And Termite, where can the listeners reach out to me, engage with me if they want to return to Yharnam with me?
You audience members can go to 80bitpodsmash.com because it's the easiest thing to remember. When I spew the list of different social media outlets, it's much quicker to just go to 80bitpodsmash.com. That's a website. You will find links to Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, and our Discord server.
Most importantly, Discord, yes.
Yes, Discord is probably the best way to reach out in this capacity.
I have a channel specifically that says Yharnam 2021, so go to that. Nice. And again, if you're, I'm not sure I usually like Penguin and Termite's taste, but I don't really know if I like these games because they're challenging. Number one, they're not as challenging as you think, as I mentioned a lot, because I thought the same thing when I started. Number two, it's always easier with the community. You can literally co-op in this game, and it makes every boss easier. So
if difficulty is the problem, then there you go.
And if you run into a wall and you're like, I cannot beat this boss, I will join you, and we'll struggle through it together. Yay!
Yeah,
Bloodborne.
Cheese it up.
More information is all out there. So I don't want to take up any more of our time. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, squeeze in?
I do want to talk about a little something Metroid related because this week is the week that Metroid comes out. I want to let anyone who cares about Amiibo, I want to make everyone aware that the Dark Samus and the Ridley Amiibo are getting reprints that will also be on the shelf in stores on October 8th. But Ridley is a GameStop exclusive. So if you're looking to get Metroid Dread this Friday, you can also pick up those two Amiibo. Dark Samus is not a retail exclusive one as far as I know, so that should be everywhere. But Ridley is exclusive to GameStop. There's also an EMMI Amiibo double pack with the new Samus armor for Metroid Dread double pack, and that will also be in stores. If you didn't get a chance to pre-order it, I'm in that boat. I didn't pre-order it, so I have to try and get one on release day. But just FYI, you can pre-order the Ridley from GameStop's website. It'll ship to your house, even though you have to pay shipping. And Dark Samus, I've pre-ordered it on Best Buy, so I'll also get that on release day. So I'll get those two Amiibo, hopefully get the double pack for Metroid Dread, and that is that. So just a little FYI, PSA out there for y'all Amiibo collectors in the world who care. There you go.
Woohoo! All right.
I'm so freaking excited for Metroid Dread. I really cannot wait.
I believe it. Yeah.
The last game that came out was a remake of Metroid 2. Not to get too much information for you for your trivia, but it came out on the 3DS. Samus Returns, and the same development team is making Dread. So if you liked the 3DS one, which was absolutely mind-blowing, incredible, then Dread just is going to be awesome. All the previews are out now. The embargo lifted for some preview content. Go check it out. Wow. It's going to be awesome.
Wait, it already lifted?
Preview, not review.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so people have played 90 minutes of the game and are able to talk about it. So like IGN has their post, various other outlets on YouTube have their posts about the game. They're allowed to discuss it in details that they've experienced. So
cool, awesome.
Yes.
All right.
It's something special.
Well, Metroid, Amiibos, playing games together, Yharnam, all these things are some of our favorite things, but
doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Favorite Things.
Favorite Things is a segment of our show where we share with you the thing or things that we are most excited about or most inspired by or most intrigued and interested in hopes that you might go out and find your next favorite thing. So take it away, Termite.
My favorite thing, I have two, but the one that's Metroid related, I want to talk about that.
Okay.
So
Everything
again,
Metroid. It's everything Metroid, guys.
right? It's the whole show. So someone had paid me back for something months ago on PayPal. And so I had a PayPal balance of money, just like I forgot about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing something, like going through different stuff, and I was like, PayPal, I have like $40 just chilling there. And I didn't, so I mentioned earlier that I'd got the Dark Samus Ridley Amiibo, and I'm looking for the EMMI Amiibo on release day. But I was like, I don't have the Smash Brothers Samus or Zero Suit Samus Amiibo. So if I want to get all the Metroid Amiibo, I have to get them too.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm doing this. So I went to eBay and started looking around, and I found for a very affordable prices the Samus Smash Bros. Amiibo and the Zero Suit Samus Smash Bros. Amiibo, and I ordered them both. And so that's my favorite thing, because I'm extremely excited for those to come in. I can't believe I never bought them when they came out. I have all of the Zelda Amiibo, like the entire, everything that's Zelda related, thanks to Justin for Bokoblin. I'm never going to let him forget that. I'm going to bring it up every time. I don't even care. He gave me the Bokoblin Amiibo, which is hard to find and kind of rare. It is worth some money, but he gave it to me, and I have the collection of all the Zelda Amiibo, and I love it. But I really, really want to get the Metroid set. And after everything is said and done, these two eBay ones come in, and all of the release day, October 8th, is done. There's still two more out there. There was a double pack that came out with that 3DS release of Samus Aran. I don't know how to pronounce the last name.
Samus Aran is what I've always said.
Okay, Samus Aran, and then an actual Metroid that's soft, that like you can touch. The Amiibo is actually like gooey.
Oh, nice.
And it was a double pack, but it's so rare that to find it new, like in a box, is $200. Used, like open box, is like $150 to $175. So I don't know when I'm ever gonna buy that, because that's crazy. Maybe I'll have to sell some stuff to like make up that cost. But those are the last two Amiibo that I don't have or won't have access to after everything is said and done. So that's my favorite thing. My cheap cop out secondary.
So if you want to have Termite constantly bring you up on the show, send them to him for free.
That's true, right?
Get your hands on them and buy them for him, whatever. If you want to
is proof.
forever be immortalized, for real, then you may even replace Justin, because he'll be like, new hotness.
Nope, because when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out and there's more Amiibo, I'm going to be pre-ordering those bad boys, and every time those come in, I talk about it on the show, I'm going to be like, I have the whole set. Because Justin.
Whole set because of Justin.
Yep.
That's fun.
And so, I'm excited about the Metroid Amiibo. That was my favorite thing. It's much like you did with the Sanderson like swag when you ordered it, how you were excited.
Oh, yeah.
And then that came in and you got another favorite things episode. You'll talk about it again. I will definitely be talking about all of this again when it all gets here and I can set them up on my desk.
Nice.
Of course, I'm in the middle of moving, so that'll be weird. But the other favorite thing I had really quickly was, in the process of getting our house ready to move, one of the things we should do is steam clean or shampoo or whatever you want to call the carpets. And you can rent a machine we went to PetSmart and got it's $30 and you have 24 hours to just go crazy on your carpets. And I picked up so much dirt from my carpets. It was both absolutely appalling and disgusting and vomit inducing, but also amazing. The carpets smelled good. They've looked better than they ever had. This carpet is 10 years old. There's coffee stains. There's grease stains from when people working on cars were like track grease into the bed through the bedroom. And I won't go into why or how that happened. But that's my other favorite thing, was like, I love clean. I love seeing things get cleaned. I love before and after. I should have taken pictures, but I didn't. Go clean your carpets. It is magical.
Yeah, we have, it's not like super industrial or anything like that, but we have like a steam, I think I talked about it here on the podcast. We got a nice deal on it from Amazon or whatever, and whenever we clean our carpets with it, it's just like, it's
heavenly.
Nice. It's very nice. Yeah, I mean, it makes everything smell good for like a day or two, where you have that shampoo smell coming out of your carpets. And for pet owners, instead of the smell of your nasty, stinky pets, which you are, I don't know about you, but I'm always paranoid that my house smells, and
Me too. I'm obsessed. I'm not just paranoid. Blind. Oh, Penguin. I'm not just paranoid. I am literally obsessed, and I go crazy. I have made my wife so angry because I am so adamant about making sure there's not a spot of cat anywhere. I will vacuum couches, furnitures. I will change cat litter boxes. I will light candles that you get from the vet that dissolve specific pet like smells. No, I was gonna say noises. And I also get like a spray with enzymes that break down animal smells, and I will spray everything with it.
Dude, I have a bottle of that stuff right now, and because we're using it, because my older dog, I don't actually know which one's older because both of them were adopted and have age shenanigans. Doesn't matter.
Aww.
The one who acts older, Gimli, he's been peeing on stuff in the kitchen recently, and so the problem is I've been like using that stuff only for that, and so I associate the smell of the spray with
happens.
The urine, and then when I get a whiff of either, I don't know which I'm actually smelling. I'm because I only associate it with urine. Whatever.
I feel like you've just gazed into a part of my soul that no one else has ever looked at, and I feel so validated.
Seen? You feel seen right now?
Seen, yes. So thank you.
All right. Real quick, my favorite thing I'm going to say is this weather. Oh, finally, the dog days of summer have passed us. No more. At least we haven't in a few weeks we haven't had like a 90-degree day or plus 90 plus degree day. It's breached 80 a couple times, but just in general the weather is taking a turn for the better in my opinion. And I am just like, bring on fall, bring on sweatshirts, cool weather, darker days, Halloween. I'm ready for all of it. I'm done with summer. I'm sick of it.
There will be in Virginia a second summer, and it usually does happen in October every year, and I'm very intimately aware of it as a runner because I think the same thing every September. I'm like, yes, it's here, it's finally fall, the humidity's dropped, we're in the 70s now, and then sometime in October, lo and behold, there's 90s, full 100% humidity, and I get so angry every year, like it's never happened
usually I've
before,
noticed it mostly is September, like mostly when in Virginia, in my experience in Virginia, October, you have some hot days some days, but the general trend in October is a downward temperature, whereas September, for me, is a toss-up. Like, September is almost, in my experience, September is almost always just another summer month with 90-degree days and high humidity. So, whatever. This September has been rather pleasant, at least on the tail end of it, and I'm here for it. I mowed the lawn not yesterday, 2 days ago, and it was like, I was sweating, but I wasn't like covered in sweat. In July or August when you mow and take your shirt off to go shower afterwards, it sticks to your body. That didn't happen on Sunday, and I was like, this is great. I love it. So
I'm
cool.
with you. Love it.
All right, so that's favorite things, which moves us to our legendary everything franchise DLCs. DLC is downloadable content. It is a segment of our show where we have a mini discussion, a game. Usually it's a little fun prompt that gets us to talk about things that you wouldn't normally talk about with video games, but this is an everything episode. This is a Metroid focused Metroid and Metroid alone episode. So we're doing a trivia head-to-head Metroid off of knowledge. I don't even know. We've been doing this for almost 4 years now, and I have no idea where we stand in regards to who is ahead.
I don't have a clue.
Champions or whatever.
We should have made an Evernote or document and like tracked it. I don't know why
it wouldn't be that hard to go in.
It really wouldn't.
And go and listen to all of our. We don't have that many everything episodes, right? So we could go in. Just literally fast forward to the trivia section.
That's true.
Find the winners.
Do it ourselves.
And track it ourselves. But we're lazy and busy, so we'll do that later. In the meantime, trivia, the way this works. Termite and I have done our research ahead of time, and we have each picked 5 questions about the Metroid franchise. It could be really anything related to Metroid. If there was a Metroid movie, we could talk about actors and performers in that. If there was Metroid comics, it's fair game. Anything Metroid, anything and everything Metroid. Spin-off games, mainline entries, old games, new games. Everything goes in Metroid trivia. So it could be even just related to the studios or the people who made the games. So it has to have some tangential link to the game franchise Metroid. Anyways, so
usually
in person.
In person, we would make sure that we're not looking at any notes.
Of
but
course,
now we have
it's
to
the honor system. Totally honor system.
So I have my questions up on my screen in
That's
Zencaster on another one.
I literally have just my questions on my. I will tell you, in the foreground.
The Metroid Wikipedia page is tabbed.
Mine
There's
as well.
A tab.
Yes,
but I'm not looking at it.
Okay,
I'm using my own notes.
Full disclosure on both. We are being as transparent and honest
I'll go
we
even
can
crazier.
here.
If I scroll up on this note, I have notes from
No,
my
we're just
research that
wasting-
I'm not seeing.
We're just wasting time here talking about how above reproach we are when there's absolutely no way that either of us nor our listeners can validate what
There's
we're
no
saying
way.
here.
There's no way.
There's pretty much
All right,
no way.
let's go.
So we're just going to do trivia. So each of us will give each other a question. We'll go back and forth. If one of us has if we both have the same question, then we hopefully have prepared bonus possible questions, and hopefully we won't completely derail one another.
I do have a couple bonus
I have like
questions.
a bonus question as well that's in there that I haven't actually written down, but I know it, so I should be able to like pull it out of my butt.
Nice.
I also have like a bonus section on a question. Anyways, it's all good. So we're gonna go. So
I'm gonna let you go first. You ask me,
okay?
Because apparently I've played more Metroid than you have, and I'll just, as someone who like might be in a stance to be better at this, it's the way of saying I'm gonna lose.
I see.
But,
so you got the high ground. You're the
your words, like you're the one that was like, oh yeah, whatever. So let's go.
Winner best out of 5 basically wins the champion's belt. So okay, cool.
Me. What's
I'll
your
start
question
then.
one?
All right, fans of which Metroid game coined the TV/video game trope, the noob bridge? So all you have to tell me is which game the noob bridge is in.
The noob, like NEW, new bridge.
Noob, NOOB, noob bridge.
There's a noob bridge with Metroid.
Yep, there's a trope called the noob bridge, and it was originated in a Metroid game. And all you have to do is tell me which Metroid
Prime.
game. Incorrect. It is Super Metroid, in which the noob bridge. If you want to know what the noob bridge is, it's basically it's anything in a video game that like tests a player's ability to intuit the controls. Like, so basically there was a sprint button in Super Metroid that people didn't intuitively know is there, kind of like in Mario.
And the ground falls out from under you.
And the ground falls out from under you, so you're meant to sprint past it, but many players didn't know that they could sprint, and therefore they died over and over again on the bridge, and so it became called the noob bridge. But now it's a trope, and anything that tests a player's knowledge of the obscure controls is a noob bridge.
I've never heard that before in my life.
Wow,
I've been playing video games for 30 plus years. That's hilarious.
Wow. Noob bridge, Super Metroid.
Who knew? I said Metroid Prime because the very intro sequence of that, she lands on like a little space station thing that's like outdoors, and it is bridgy, and it does test the player's like aiming. Yeah. Whether you want inverted or not, kind of like Halo does.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, that's why I said Prime. I just guessed.
Wasn't Prime defaulted to inverted?
I have no clue. Yes, maybe I would not. That's a good
I kind of remember
question.
that.
I think
kind of remember that.
Yeah.
So anyway, start. Go ahead. Your first question. So,
you ready?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. Metroid Dread is the conclusion of a set of Metroid games, completing the side-scrolling story arc. What are the other titles in this arc? And I put a caveat that I'd like you to say it in release order, but there's 2 different ways you could say that, so I'm not going to be super picky. But
how many? Can you at least give me the total amount of games?
So Metroid Dread is actually Metroid
5. Okay, great, great. So I have to do 4. Okay.
Yes.
So Metroid.
Okay. Which one? I'm assuming NES, right?
Yeah, NES Metroid.
Uh-huh.
Metroid 2 Return of Samus.
Yep.
Super Metroid.
Yeah.
And then Metroid Fusion.
Nailed it. Look at you. Yeah.
Research.
Yes.
Oh, that was a good one though, because it wasn't like an immediate, like easy, just like one word answer. It was like I had to actually like retain what I had learned.
But yet not too complicated, not in depth in the lore of like, I'm not going to go into things yet because you're going to spoil answers. All right.
All right, 1-0. So my number 2.
Yep.
Which sci-fi movie is Metroid based off of?
Alien,
correct.
Yeah.
And I have a bonus question.
Yeah.
So this will only count. Do we want to say it only counts if we need it to count,
it's a
or like
point.
a tiebreaker? Yeah, half point. Okay, yeah. Which actress / character? All you have to tell me
Scott.
is either. No. You didn't let me finish. I'll dock you a half. You only get a quarter of a point for cutting me off. Which all you have to do is tell me the actress or the character itself. But who was the inspiration for Samus from the movie Alien?
Sigourney Weaver.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Ripley was the character's name, but Ripley / Sigourney Weaver. So there you
Yeah.
go. All right,
Half
you
point.
get a quarter of a point.
Oh, come on.
I'm kidding. You get half point. All right.
You ready?
Yep.
Speaking of female Metroid, players don't learn that the protagonist of Metroid is a female unless they do what? And this is for Metroid 1 on the NES. Legendarily, Samus was a female, but how did people figure that out? What did they have to do? What is the conditions to find out that Samus is actually a female?
Well, there's a couple different ways from my understanding, but I think, are we talking about without like the cheat codes?
Correct. No cheat codes. This
Okay,
was
no
the
cheat
legit
codes. All
way
right,
to
just
do
the
it.
legit way to do it.
There's like 5 different endings, and I think the second worst ending, she takes just her helmet off, revealing long flowing hair. And that, if you can guess the qualifications to get that ending or any better ending, I'll give you this.
All right. Do you have to beat it without losing a life?
Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer.
No.
No, I didn't know what it is.
Yeah. So it's complete the game in under 5 hours.
Oh,
there's better endings for faster times. There's like a 3-hour gate, a 2-hour gate, and a 1-hour gate.
Gotcha.
There's like even better endings. And she's in a bikini with the best one, of course, because, you know, the 80s. That's how they portrayed women. So it's wonderful that, like, oh, if you beat the game in 5 hours, you know, she's the protagonist of a video game is a female. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, great for representation. But if you do really, really well, then she's got a bikini, and it kind of reverses everything. But I digress.
Yeah.
So you did not get that one. So now it's
There
1
is
to 1.5.
There's actually an interesting factoid I learned that it's not one of my bonus questions, but until we're done with yours, I don't want to say it because. But Cole, put a pin in that. So put a pin in the whole like scantily clad women aspect of the game.
I can promise you none of my. Wait, hold on. Let me look at my bonus ones. Yeah, none of my future questions have to deal with
anything.
anything.
Then sweet little bonus thing. They actually originally wanted to have her be like implied nudity under, like whenever she like her armor, like whenever she died and her armor like explodes, they wanted to have implied. It would probably have been just a silhouette.
Yeah,
but they also had a death scream, and they decided that it was their censors or the publisher or producer was like, we can't have her both naked and screaming. That's a little too suggestive.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so speaking of, I had mentioned passwords and cheat codes.
Yep.
So there was like a password system in the game, and there was a specific password that you could enter that was just a name, Justin Bailey, on the original NES game. What did typing Justin Bailey into the password? What did that do?
That allowed you to play Samus with no armor and green hair.
Yes, and the purple leotard or whatever, suitless Samus, or what has been affectionately referred to as the Justin Bailey, which I am disappointed to have found out disappointed to know that there was never any like homage to that in Smash Bros. So
yeah, it's weird.
Whatever.
But if you would have switched that question to, hey, there's a password that lets people play Samus with no suit. What's the password? I would have failed.
You got it.
You handed it to me because you gave me what was it, Justin? What?
Justin Bailey.
Justin Bailey. Yeah.
Justin Bailey.
That's the part I could not remember. But
That's funny. I thought about reversing it, and I said, yeah.
Well, now it's 2.5 to 1. So
2.5 to 1. Am I only at 1?
Yeah, you got the first one right. You missed my second one. So this is my third question for you.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. The first Metroid takes place on the planet Zebes, or Zebes. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Zebes, okay, sure.
Yeah. What other Metroid games take place on the same planet? And there's 2.
There's 2, okay.
2.
Metroid Prime.
Yep. Just the first one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the second game?
Thank you for ruling out all the other Prime games.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that, that's
sure.
I helped you.
The second one, Super Metroid?
Yes!
Yes!
Look at you!
Boom! I guessed. I'm not going to lie. I 100% guessed that. All
Nice.
right. 2 points. Man, you're giving me all these like multi-answer ones and only giving me a single point for it.
I probably would have given you a half a point if you'd have just got Metroid Prime, and then we'd be tied.
Nice.
So now it's 2.5 to 2, and I'm up. So what you got? Lay it on me.
Wait. Okay, yeah.
I'm 2.5, you're 2.
Got
so
it.
I'm still ahead by just a half.
All right. What is the origin of the morph ball? I don't mean the story origin. I mean, why is the morph ball in the game?
I mean, it showed up in the first NES game.
Yes, why? What was the design reason for it?
I've never read this. I don't know. I would assume because of like scrolling screens and map exploration and wanting to put Samus in a way that she can't crouch, but yet still small spaces.
Okay, I mean, you haven't actually hit on the exact reason, but you're close. So I'm gonna say you're wrong. But
okay,
it was specifically because they were having trouble designing a good looking crawl animation. So they came up with the idea of having her morph into this little ball, which was much, much easier to animate for a NES game. So yep, they couldn't make her crawl. So that's the origin of the morph ball. So 2.5 to 2 still, right?
Yeah, 2.5 to 2. I'm still ahead.
All right, is this game breaker, I guess, or potential?
This
question
is
number
question
5?
number 4 from me.
Got it. All right.
All right, you got 2 more points on the table. Here we go. What is the first game in the Metroid chronology?
Zero Mission. Metroid Zero
Dang,
Mission.
you are better than you should give yourself credit for. It's specifically Metroid Zero Mission because it's a Game Boy Advance title. It was a remake of the first game, but it includes in that remake an extra mission, and it's called Samus's Zero Mission. And because of that inclusion, it actually makes the Game Boy Advance game the very first in the Metroid chronology and not the NES version of which it is a remake of. So there you go.
On. Well, actually, you know what? I'm just looking at my questions, and that was my same exact question for number 5. So I have to revert to my bonus question. And that is, what does Metroid mean? What is the origin of the word Metroid? What 2 words is it a combination of?
Ultimate Warrior.
What?
That's how it from Chozo. It's translated. Chozo.
No.
From
I'm
the
sorry.
Chozo language.
Sorry. You are not wrong about that. I'm trusting you're not wrong about that, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, again, this is another development question. Where did they come up with the term Metroid? It's the combination of 2 English words. And what are those 2 words?
I don't know.
Metro.
Yeah.
And Android.
Oh, I did know that.
They wanted to give the idea Metro for fast moving.
Yep.
High energy, and then Android for because she looks like a robot. Yep. Yeah.
That was your 5th question, huh?
That was my 5th question. So that leaves us 3 to 2.5.
Yeah, you're gonna win. That's it. You don't have anything left for me, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
There you go.
But what's your 5th question? Just give me a 5th question.
So Yoshio Sakamoto said, which sci-fi movie was an enormous influence on Metroid? Which you asked me, so I know you know the answer to that.
Alien, right? But what would be your bonus question, since that was a duplicate?
Yeah, bonus question number 1. Between what 2 games does the entirety of Metroid Prime take place? Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3 are sequels of each other, but all 3 games are wedged between what 2 others?
Yeah, Zero Mission and Metroid 1?
Zero Mission is Metroid 1, so I'm going to let you not make that mistake.
All right. Metroid Zero Mission then, and Return of Samus then, I guess.
Yeah. That was it.
All right, cool.
Yeah, between Metroid 1 and 2.
Sweet. Well, I trounced you then.
Yeah, you destroyed me. I figured you would.
Trivia.
I knew it. I found myself in the trap of asking 2 easy questions while you were coming in hard with this stuff that I didn't know.
Hey, you got the Justin Bailey one, so that was a softball for you.
Yeah, it was. I was waiting for you to ask, where did the Metroid come from? What planet is that?
Oh, yeah.
And I'd have been SR388.
Well, apparently I worded my questions pretty poorly too, because some of them you thought the opposite of what I was trying to say. So it's fine. All right. Well, that's Metroid trivia then.
Penguin beat Termite, the resident Metroid expert.
I think I seem to do better on the ones that you actually know more about. And
that's
then the ones
you are really, really good at sourcing questions that I don't know.
Huzzah. All right, well, that is DLC then. So that puts Penguin as the current reigning champ, and next time we do one of these everythings, then that's where we're at. We did a Halo one, right? Everything Halo?
I don't remember.
I think so. We did. I think we did. It sounded familiar, but I'm a little disappointed because, Halo Infinite's coming out. It would have been the perfect time to do an everything Halo. But I think we've already done it. We'll have to double check. Anyways, so I don't know when the next everything's going to come up. It'll come up when it's fortuitous for us to do it. So get yourselves Metroid Dread this weekend, but we're not done talking about Metroid. So that's DLC. We're going to jump into our main topic now then. So everything Metroid. So we're going to go through kind of we have a formula for these. We're going to talk about Metroid and the kind of game that it is, and just sort of give you the high level of what is Metroid, talk about its history, how the first game came to be, and sort of what the major games that were released afterwards and any kind of interesting drama that were resulted in that. We'll talk about our experiences with Metroid. We'll talk about our personal favorites within the Metroid franchise, and then we'll talk about the influence, impact, and innovation Metroid's brought to the industry. And if we have time, we'll talk about what we want to see, a wish list or future Metroid games. So let's jump into it. What is Metroid?
Metroid, if you've ever heard of the Metroidvania genre, Metroid coined it. Obviously, it's part of the name. So Metroid, the original Metroid, it's an action game. It's a side-scrolling kind of platformer, but it is touted to be legendary in that it was the first side-scrolling type game that was non-linear.
Yep.
Like Mario was in the past, and there was all these other types of arcade-style games, but Samus was the first game that allowed you to have a map that you had to figure out as you went, to chart your directions, and you collect power-ups and items that require you to backtrack to open previously blocked paths that you can unblock with your new upgrades. So that's kind of Metroid in a nutshell. It's a giant exploration collecting. So it kind of takes the idea of Zelda, where you would collect an item in a dungeon that would allow you to open pathways within that dungeon, and Mario, where you would have a side-scrolling action platformer, and kind of put those two together. Also, the ideas of like a Mega Man, where you have an arm cannon.
I was going to say, they wanted it to be a shooter as well. So, you know,
so you have
Contra
all three of those.
Or Mega Man, what other games that were shooters, 2D shooters at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That was an inspiration or a attempt as well. Yeah, and again, you know, to kind of round out the sort of, you know, for people who've never played this or heard of this franchise before, you're playing as this heavily armored bounty hunter named Samus Aran. You're fighting aliens. It's got a much darker tone than most Nintendo games at the time, and really just most Nintendo games in general. It's probably one of their darkest titles in general in regards to just a vibe and atmosphere. So and I guess did we mention that it was Nintendo? It's made by Nintendo.
Yeah.
Completely a Nintendo IP entirely. So, so yeah, you're fighting aliens, space pirates, and these monstrous creatures called Metroids. So cool. Well, then I guess that does it for what is Metroid. So let's talk about its history. How did this game come to be? What made Nintendo want to make this game?
And this is where we look to our best friend on the internet, Wikipedia, to source some material about some of the initial discussions surrounding the origin of games. The central figures in the production of the development of the Metroid series are Satoru Okada, who directed Metroid and created the series, Yoshio Sakamoto, who acted as a character designer for the first game and has directed or supervised the development of the subsequent games, Gunpei Yokoi, who headed the R&D1 division, that's the development studio under Nintendo that developed the game and produced the first two games, Metroid 1 and 2, Makoto Kano, who wrote the scenario for Metroid, co-designed the second game and produced the third, and Hiroji Kiyotaki, who designed characters for the original game. All of this happened. The original Metroid was developed by Nintendo's R&D1, released in Japan in August of 1986. It is the same age as me. It came out 5 days after I was born, so I, much like with Zelda, love that I celebrate my birthday with the original release of Zelda and Metroid, my two favorite Nintendo franchises. I love them, and I have t-shirts, and I have Amiibos, and all the games, and I love it. I'm excited, and so that's where it came from. Didn't come to America, though, until 1987, and on January 5th, 1988 in Europe. It was directed by Satoru Okada.
Yeah, and a fun little fact, and I like when I was reading through this history, I zeroed in on this fact because I swore this was a Termite question. I swore you were going to ask this question, and you didn't. But the original Metroid, the first game, was actually designed for the Family Computer Disk System.
That's Famicom.
The what? That's
Japanese Famicom.
Oh, that's
the NES for Japan. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It looks so different.
Yeah. Wait, hold up. Full stop. Wait a minute. You have been podcasting with me about video games for over 4 years, and you are just now realizing that the Japanese version of the NES is called the Family Computer Disk System Famicom.
Yes, because you've only ever called it Famicom.
And that, I have one on my shelf, right?
Nope. I know you had one, but I never paid attention to it. It was a detail that was lost in my brain, in my ADHD brain.
The NES Classic system, the mini version in Japan was a Famicom.
I've never seen it like that. I've only seen it said as Famicom, so that's kind of funny.
I
learned something today.
I'll give you one thing, in that it does say the Famicom Disk System, which is actually an attachment to the original Famicom, which is a Nintendo Family Computer.
Gotcha.
Home console. So I'll give you that, because you might not know there's a disc attachment to it.
I didn't know there was a disc attachment. I was just interested in that fact that it was originally designed for a disc-based system, not a cartridge-based system, and was effectively ported to a cartridge-based. Yeah, okay. So I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at the picture, and I see the Famicom looks like an NES, but it's sitting on top of, and that was what threw me off, the disc.
Okay, gotcha.
So that was what threw me off. I thought it was an entirely different console, but now it makes sense. And now I'm looking at it, and I'm like,
you freaked me out a little bit, Penguin dude.
But but you know what I mean.
Right.
So the interesting thing here is that it was actually designed on disc, but so it was made by R&D1. Moving on, so they said that it was designed to be a shooting game that combined platform of Super Mario with the nonlinear exploration of Zelda. So you totally nailed that kind of combo of what they were inspired by.
And I did that without reading the wiki. Boom.
Yeah. There's where that fact comes. The name of the game is a portmanteau of the words Metro, as in rapid transit, and Android, meant to allude to the underground setting of the first game, as well as the robot-like protagonist. And then halfway through the development, one of the staff, it's not listed who, but one of the staff said, hey, wouldn't it be kind of cool if it turned out that the person inside the suit was a woman? And the idea was apparently widely accepted. So, we have some rando developer to thank for turning Samus into a woman.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we would have just gotten another generic Space Marine protagonist that would come to dominate the video game landscape for the next 20 years. So yeah, again, I love that little fact that like some rando was just like, hey, you know what? Wouldn't it be cool if there was a woman? And then everybody was just like, yeah, she's a woman now. So yay for video gaming's first strong female protagonist.
Somebody cared back in the 80s. Thank you.
Yep. So anyways, and then yes, here it's listed here that, the 1979 science fiction film Alien was described as a huge influence, probably the biggest influence. Other influences were the designs of H.R. Giger. I don't know if you've ever seen H.R. Giger's work. He was an artist, drew a bunch of creepy monsters, and his works are awesome, but they also very much Metroid. You can tell how the designs come
I
right
didn't know
from
that.
them.
Neat.
So moving along in history, the next game to come out in the franchise wouldn't actually come out till 1991. So that's like a 5-year development cycle there.
It is. Yep.
Metroid 2: Return of Samus, followed by Super Metroid.
You glossed over a small detail. Metroid 2, the sequel, was released for Game Boy. So you think NES to Game Boy, the Game Boy game itself is a technical masterpiece.
Yeah,
the amount of Game Boy is super technologically bound. It's very limited in what it can do. And if you played Metroid 2 on the Game Boy, which I've done through the Virtual Console and the 3DS, you'll see the way the sprite work was done and the amount of enemies on the screen and the level all being rendered at once with the side scroll. They've preserved the feel and look of Metroid 1 and the exploration and the non-linearity all on a Game Boy game that you can take with you. Unheard of.
Yeah.
And absolutely incredible. It's actually a big success story that proved some awesome technical prowess with the developers at Nintendo.
Yeah. I wonder how much of a commercial success it was in comparison, only because, today you think of, portable gaming and home gaming as almost two separate things with almost two separate audiences. I don't know if that was the case back in the day, but I would wonder there was probably some effect of that, right? There was probably some people who were like, I don't want to get a stupid Game Boy to play this game. I don't know. It would be interesting to research, but that's kind of my thought of that jump. Anyways, 3 years later would see the release of Super Metroid for the SNES. So they made that big jump, and Super Metroid is widely considered to be one of the best games of all time. I believe it showed up on our list.
Yep.
And or on the Wikipedia list, and it's just, again, a sort of a technical masterpiece in video game design at the time. Certainly it's probably one of the best, if not the best, SNES game, period. So anyways,
it's even in contention for my top 3.
Yeah, I believe
it's way up there. Yeah.
Yep. So then from there would be a huge drought, and from 1994 to 2002 would not see any single Metroid releases. Yeah, 8 years, probably probably the biggest gap in the franchise's history. But in 2002, they wanted to make the jump. They had the N64. So there's a little story here. They had the N64 and they wanted a Metroid game on it, but R&D1 didn't want to do. They didn't like the controller. They didn't think they could do a 3D Metroid game. So instead, they reached. Nintendo basically hired Retro Studios to do it. But they wouldn't get it done until the Game Boy was out, GameCube was out. So they released Metroid Prime for the GameCube in 2002. In kind of response to that, R&D1, I'm trying to remember who was the exact person who did it, but there was someone who was like, well, we can't just let them take our franchise off our hands. So they developed Metroid Fusion along the same time and released it at the same time, which was the next one in the not only the chronological history, but also in the 2D line of games. So those two games came out in the same year.
Yeah, and Metroid Fusion and Metroid Prime, Nintendo was doing this cool, during the GameCube era, they were experimenting with a lot of weird connectivity things with the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube. And if you remember, Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles would use the Game Boy Advance as a controller for the GameCube itself. There was a link cable that came out with it. Well, you could actually do the link to the Metroid Fusion Game Boy Advance game to Metroid Prime and get the Faison Suit in Metroid Prime.
Nice.
And it was really cool. It was a little cosmetic thing, but if you had both...
The Fusion Suit is one of her cooler looking suits,
I have my cell phone wallpaper.
They got the Batman little things, little spikes on her arms. That's awesome. Yeah, and they, again, it was Sakamoto who was like, we have to do this for the Game Boy Advance just because, we don't want this franchise basically to be taken away from us. So yeah, and then again, they would do Zero Mission on the Game Boy Advance as well, a remake of the original Metroid with the extra content, chronological content. both games, all the games were really well accepted. And Metroid Prime, again, was a jump to not just 3D, but it was,
a first-person
shooter. Exactly.
That was crazy in the gaming industry. Like, that was nuts. Everyone lost their minds. Much like Wind Waker to the Zelda franchise with the new graphic style.
Yeah.
Like, this was Metroid's, like, what is happening in the world? So Nintendo really, like, turned up its franchises on its head, because the launch title for the GameCube was Luigi's Mansion, not a Mario title. Yep. Everyone's like, what? And then Zelda with Wind Waker, and now Metroid Prime, and how it turned into a first-person shooter. Everyone speculated about how it would not look or feel the same way. It is a legendary title. It is one of my favorite GameCube games. Metroid Prime is
incredibly immersive. Yeah, I still love Metroid Prime.
It's timeless. It still holds up. It doesn't look that bad. Like, the 3D graphics aren't that bad.
For sure.
It looks great. Yeah.
Cool. So, obviously, there would be more games of the Metroid Prime franchise because it was so successful. Mm-hmm. There would be Metroid Prime 2, also on the GameCube, and Metroid Prime Corruption would come out for the Wii with motion controls, which are still, to this day, a little bit controversial to my understanding. Mm-hmm. So, again, then there would be kind of a bit of a gap. They would release the Metroid Prime trilogy for the Wii in 2009. Mm-hmm. But then the next game to come out would be Metroid Other M, and this is where things started to get kind of crappy. This is where the franchise kind of entered into a decline period. It was designed by Team Ninja, love Team Ninja, but who made Neo, Ninja Gaiden, and the Dead or Alive series, and are part of the sort of Koei Tecmo line. So again, you can kind of see Nintendo's relationship with them forming there. But unfortunately, Other M was not very well received. It was a third-person perspective, and sort of had a greater focus on story than action. Received a lot of criticism for their characterization of Samus as timid and emotional with a reduced emphasis, and also with a reduced emphasis on exploration. So it's like, So it was not received very well in general.
Yeah.
And from then on out, you wouldn't really see anything in the franchise until Metroid Prime Federation Force, which was their attempt at a multiplayer game for the 3DS, which was also not well received because it seemed like a cash grab. It seemed like Nintendo, very late in the game, when the industry was really moving kind of away from multiplayer games, and like primarily as in a lot of ways, then trying to squeeze out a multiplayer game for the Metroid franchise. Not a big fan for most people. But they would then a year later release Samus Returns in 2017, and that was much more well received. Yes.
Oh my gosh, so good.
It's a remake of Metroid 2. Yep.
Yeah, it's a remake. So interestingly enough, Metroid Prime 3 came out in 2007, and there was a 10-year gap to the next Metroid proper game, and that was a remake, which means we haven't seen new Metroid content in the Metroid world outside of like some random spin-offs
this year.
Since 2007
till Friday.
To now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 14
Crazy.
years.
That's
14
ridiculous.
years. And it is a sequel to a game that came out in 2002, so it's been almost 20. It's 19 years ago. This is the 5th game. Metroid Dread is coming out this Friday. Get pumped. Get ready.
They marked,
check out the previews.
Or Sakamoto confirmed that Dread will mark the end of the current storyline, but not the franchise as a whole.
Right.
So there's some...
Well, Metroid Prime 4 exists. We already know that.
Yeah,
and Retro Studios is developing it. So
sure, but who knows where it will land in the timeline. So I'm wondering if, like, they might, I don't know, introduce a new character to follow. Who knows? What they could do with the idea.
Ooh, implications abound.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much the history. That's all the games and everything. So, man, so little time to do all the things we want to do. Let's talk about the next thing. So let's really quickly talk about our first experiences and what we love about the franchise and why it stands out to us. And then we'll jump right into our favorites and rankings, which we'll have to kind of do lightning round, but that's fine.
Yes.
So what was your first experience with Metroid, and what do you love about the franchise?
My first experience was actually Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo, and it was captivating in its ambience and atmosphere, but I didn't get the mechanics. I didn't understand it because I didn't play the original or the sequel on Game Boy, and so jumping into Super Metroid, like I guess New Bridge, like you talked about, like I didn't get it, and so it didn't click. But it was fascinating to me. I kind of liked it. I knew it was kind of like Mega Man, which I loved. I loved Mega Man X, but Metroid was different. So I didn't really connect with Metroid until Prime came out. At that point, because all I had played in the past was Super Metroid, and I read all about Metroid Prime, and I heard of the first-person perspective and everything else. And because of my love for Zelda, Metroid Prime made so much more sense, and I absolutely adored it. So what do I love about the franchise? I mentioned ambience, atmosphere, and the Zelda-like non-linearity with the whole like unlocking power-ups to then like go back and re-explore areas, because that was like awesome for me as a kid to be like, oh, that door's locked, that space is blocked, I can't get there, and you keep hitting it over and over again. Like, how do I get past this puzzle? And then you finally get the item that lets you do it. And you're like, yes, now I can go explore all these areas that I was unable to earlier. And there's like this feeling you get, like dopamine or something, a rush to like go back and do it all.
Oh
and
yeah,
it's really exciting.
I love that feeling in games that are not Metroid games that I've played that have clearly been inspired by Metroid, and I'm like, yep, love this, love this feeling.
Yeah. So
my first experience with Metroid as a franchise was Smash Bros. Samus in Smash, and didn't know anything about this character or anything about this franchise at the time. Was totally a kid, so don't give me too much flack.
Right.
But yeah, I was a little baby. So yeah, but loved the vibe, everything about it, like everything about Samus. I was like, this is fascinating, this is interesting. Oh my god! And then when I found out she was a girl, I was like, this is even more interesting, right? Yeah. To a young preteen kid, like, wow, this BA character is a girl and she's not portrayed as, like scantily clad. Really, really interesting,
And didn't need a man to like do anything.
Right, yeah, totally. Like, I'm not gonna say that Samus introduced me necessarily to feminism, but it certainly laid some seeds there for kind of conceptualizing women as more than just damsels in distress,
right?
Or
icons,
that kind of thing. So, right. Anyway, so loved the idea, and so of course it was enough for me to be also interested in Prime. The problem with Prime is that I was bad at it, and there was no internet for me to turn to help me get better at it. So I did give up on Prime, which sucks because I think that moment probably kept me from enjoying the franchise as a whole for the next 20 years or whatever.
Oh,
so I'm really, 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 really hoping that Nintendo does a trilogy re-release for the Switch, because I would love to jump back into those games. Yeah. And I am one way or another, I am stoked about Metroid Prime 4. I'm totally going to get into it. I have a hard time with the 2D side scrollers, not because I think they're bad or anything, but just because I just don't really play a lot of 2D side scrollers. It's not really my jam. Mm-hmm. But I'm open-minded, and I would be totally willing to borrow Dread from someone and sink some hours into it and see if I like it. So
it might be the best Switch game that's come out in a very long time.
I know. Switch has been a little dry for me recently, so yeah. Anyway, so favorites and rankings. Let's talk about our favorites. So what is your favorite mainline Metroid game?
Super Metroid. I have since revisited it and went back, and now I really appreciate it, and it's freaking amazing, and it's incredible. The boss fights are all dynamic. The gameplay mechanics are great. The unlocks are awesome. The pacing's fantastic. Everything about the game is solid. Its graphics engine and sprite work is gorgeous, and it's timeless, and I love it. So there you go. I'm
going to say the only real mainline Metroid game I've properly played, sunk any amount of time into, is Metroid Prime, so I'm going to say that's mine. So that is what I'll go with. Favorite spin-off game or spin-off content? Any Metroid anywhere that's not a mainline game, what is your favorite piece of that?
I don't like Metroid Prime Pinball, Metroid Prime Hunters, and I don't like Metroid Prime Federation Force. They're all bad, which leaves me with no other side content except for the Zero mission that was added to the remake of the first one in Game Boy Advance. Nice. So I'm going to go with that.
I would say that's kind of mainline, but that's fine. Yeah. I'm going to say Smash. I'm going to specifically say Ridley.
Okay.
Yeah, that counts. Duh. That's why I said, why I sort of expanded it to favorite Metroid content outside of Metroid games.
Too, yeah. Smash Bros. Ultimate, you got Ridley.
Specifically
Dark Samus,
Ridley, yeah. I mean, I love Dark Samus. I think I like Dark Samus's play, like the feeling of her more than Samus herself. Mm-hmm. But my favorite single Metroid character in Smash to play is Ridley, and I was the hype around and everything around Ridley, and the trailer reveal of Ridley was just like, yeah, no, I'm in. So. Cool. Favorite Samus suit design?
Ooh, there is a red. I have to look it up. I think it's called the Faison Suit. Yes, it's red and black. It's in Metroid Prime at the end game. It is sick, nasty, awesome looking, incredible. It's her normal like Varia suit, which is the orange and red with the bigger shoulder blades, but it's red and black, and red visor, black armor, and red torso, and it's awesome. It looks so good. So that's my favorite.
Nice. I mean, in part, I'm tempted to say Zero Suit Samus, but I'll specifically say as far as the armor goes, which is ultimately cooler. I hinted at it. I love the Dark Samus look.
Yeah.
Whichever look they specifically drew Dark Sam or the Smash Bros from, which I want to say is probably 3.
I think it's Metroid Prime 2.
Is it 2? Okay, yeah. That look though, the color scheme and everything is totally like the black and blue is just like, love it. So, yeah, cool, awesome. Then I also do. Honestly, I like the. I know it's a little the pink leotard, the and the green hair.
Yeah.
There's something classic sci-fi about that. And again, I know there's probably some accusations of it being a little objectifying, and I don't think that's wrong. Like, I don't think that's incorrect, I should say. But there's something about that pink leotard, like, one-piece look that I think is just really classic sci-fi.
Yeah.
And it's really cool they included it, and it's really disappointing they haven't paid homage to it in Smash. Even just like a purple recolor of Zero Suit Samus with green hair, like the same suit but just purple and with the green hair, that would have been enough for me to be like, sweet, this is an homage to that suit. But it's to me it's kind of iconic. Just in doing this research, I'm like, oh, that's iconic. I don't know why they didn't do that. So
yeah, why not?
All right, cool. Moving along, what is your favorite enemy/villain?
Ooh, this is hard. I mean, a lot of people say Ridley, but I always found him annoying because he busts in and wrecks your life, and he's not fun to deal with. So I always found the Kraid boss fight kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because he's this towering, massive, like, dinosaur demon-looking thing with, like, these 3 belly buttons that have spikes that shoot out. And it does require a vertical scroll to, like, fight him because he's so tall. And so in Super Metroid, you have to, like, jump on these platforms and hit weak spots to, like, get him. So that's really, really cool. But there's also, like, this Piranha Plant boss that's in Super Metroid that's really fun to fight. The Omega Metroid, or I think it's what it's called. The Omega Metroid is the final boss of Metroid Fusion. Was really crazy. Oh my gosh, I know what it is. I got it. Hold on, I have to look it up though. So you go ahead. I know.
I mean, mine's pretty obvious. I'm gonna say Ridley, but I don't know enough about the games. But the version of Ridley where like parts of his body are like cybernetic. That's the best.
Oh yeah,
Ridley. Yeah, I'm into
Cyber
that.
Ridley or whatever it's called.
Uh-huh.
All right, here's my actual favorite boss. Sorry, it took a second. I had to externally process. The remake of Metroid 2, Samus Returns for the DS or 3DS, has a massive, crazy boss fight called Dig or Not. And he's a rogue Chozo mining robot. He's a boss in Samus Returns. He did not exist in the original. It's just in the remake. And it is this crazy long encounter across multiple stages that involves the power bomb and timing and all of the pretty much everything that Samus can do. It's this awesome, really long boss fight, but also very difficult. And I hated it at first, but like Returnal and like I guess you experience with these Soulsborns, when you finally beat the thing, it wasn't like infuriating to lose a lot, but when you beat it, it was like, yes, you felt like accomplished and you've mastered the game. There's a
euphoria of overcoming a struggle. I think that a lot of older video games captured really well, and I think that's attributed to the success that has sort of contributed to the success of the Soulsborne franchise, is because so many games in that 2000s era really held your hand and eliminated that feeling because they made them so easy and accessible. Again, you ran into a wall, you could always drop the difficulty, but then suddenly you couldn't. And it was like the old days where you beat it because of grit, determination, knowledge, and skill.
Yes.
and when you have that, it probably sounds silly to people who are non-gamers, but there's a satisfying feeling of being like, I did it. I finally did it. And it seems to erase all of the previous frustration you had up to that point. So
it does, seemingly.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. All right, cool. Then next is, we're going to skip a few because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
So let's just do our last one here, which is 2D or FPS. Which do you prefer? Which version of Metroid do you prefer, 2D or FPS?
2D.
Okay.
Every one of the 5, well, I'm assuming Dread's going to be good, but all 4 of the currently existing 2D ones, including the remakes, so 6 total, are amazing and absolutely incredible and totally timeless. Of the first-person shooters, you have the 3 Metroid Prime games. I didn't really like or click with 3 a lot. I never actually finished 2, but 1 was absolutely incredible. So it's not the same.
Kind of a mixed bag. I wonder if at least 3 would be redeemed with proper first-person shooter controls. I don't know.
I don't know if motion controls were what took me away from it. I don't really remember much about it. I need to start it again and see, but it just didn't click.
FPS only because I'm prejudiced towards 2D, so that's my own problem, I guess.
Yeah.
But all right, cool. All right, sweet. Well, let's then talk about probably the most important question, which we have barely any time for now. What is the impact, influence, innovation? What is this franchise has it brought to the industry and the culture in general?
It's one of the few genre-defining games. I mentioned it earlier. Metroidvania, right?
Yep.
It's the non-linearity, exploring, getting items to backtrack and unlock new areas. It's a trope now. but it is a template that modern games follow. Like Ori and the Will of the Wisps follow that. I'm sure Celeste follows the same deal.
So many games, not just 2D games though. I mean, Darksiders has Metroidvania elements, and we should pay tribute to the fact that the other part of Metroidvania is Castlevania, so doing much of the same. That franchise also doing much of the same things with exploration, but also just in general the action platformer, the action game platformer combined with these exploratory elements. Again, you say those words and it's like that applies to so many games. Later Zelda games would implement the same ideas. Breath of the Wild, you can attribute a lot of that to Metroidvania influence. The Souls genre borrows heavily from Metroidvania, and even
games that you don't expect, like Returnal.
Exactly. I was going to say, not only is Returnal very Metroid in its feel and characters and everything, but also down to the gameplay elements. Like, it's a roguelike, yes, but there are things that you unlock that allow you to go back to those earlier biome areas and explore more. So, totally. That influence is so widespread in this industry. So, huge. But, I mean, not only that, not only just in gameplay design, but, like, in innovation. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm sure there are some complications with the idea of, there are probably some sexist lines, and I mean, again, having her in a bikini and scantily clad in some depictions of her, that's not exactly the most, feminist thing in the world. But no one can deny the idea that Samus was arguably one of the first strong female protagonists that for the vast majority of the game was not heavily sexualized. You only got the, quote, sexualized version of her if you did it on the hardest possible achievement in the game, which was to beat it in an hour or whatever. So that's a pretty groundbreaking achievement for women in video games. So
which
for
they
better
moved
or for worse.
forward. They being Nintendo, like they actually moved that idea forward in a great way, all the way up through Other M, which was heavily criticized because they didn't handle it correctly.
They didn't handle her correctly, right?
So it's nice to know that that actually affected our culture. It continued to move that conversation forward about a female protagonist, and I'm curious to see what Metroid Prime 4 will be like if we do lean in on the story more. So Metroid Other M was both unique in that it was story centric and heavily voice acted and lots of cinematics, as being like one of the only Metroid games that has done that, because even Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3 didn't really do that in the modern era. And then the 2D side-scrollers just have text that you read with very minimal voice acting. So the next one up that's going to be, quote, a modern take on Metroid will be Metroid Prime 4, possibly Dread having some cinematics, but we don't know about the voice acting yet. But I'm curious to see how they're going to handle that.
Sure, they have a great opportunity,
but
too, because, we've come so far. Again, I mean, the influence of Samus as, BA, strong female character that's not primarily defined by her sexuality. You've got so many characters, draw from that. Now you've got examples, Aloy, Celine from Returnal, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, Kena, and as a recent example, Last of Us, Ellie. You have all these characters that draw their roots. But unlike Samus, those other characters also have emotional depth, which is what, for better or for worse, it is what Team Ninja was trying to do with that character. They misfired and they failed, but the attempt was still there. And that is what Samus desperately needs, is she needs some characterization, some fleshing out of her personality and who she is and what drives and motivates her. So I feel like we've come so far as an industry in being able to tell those stories in games. So it would be a missed opportunity if they just made her, another silent space marine protagonist that just happens to be a girl. That would be doing a disservice to her character as well, when there's this opportunity to flesh her out and make her something really special and make her kind of what she was destined to be, which is this, queen of a gaming icon that she deserves to be.
How cool would it be if that's what Metroid Dread ends up doing, given that it's the closing of this story arc?
Totally want that to be what they do with that game.
Yeah, that'd be great.
There was some things that I missed that I think is important, is there was sort of a attempt at doing a movie. There was many attempts at doing a movie over the years, and it's really interesting. Supposedly there, as early as 2003, they wanted to do a live action film based on Metroid. John Woo, but the rights expired in 2003. So John Woo, who did Mission Impossible, Face Off, a lot of great action movies. He's highly regarded in sort of the action movie. He wanted to do a Metroid movie after the rights expired for those other guys. And so his Lion Rock Productions, his studio, was going to release it before 2006. And it had writers from Buffy and Angel on it.
Wow.
Great shows. It was going to be an origin story. And, you know, they were going to portray Samus as this exceptionally talented but flawed character who was looking for redemption. Like, that sounds exactly like how Samus should be characterized. But according to the producer, one of the producers, the Nintendo had initially supported the idea, but then they became really, like, paranoid because of the Mario Bros. Film in 1993.
Yep.
And so, like, when they started asking Nintendo questions about Samus's personal life and relationships and, you know, the things you need to flesh out a character in a movie, Nintendo apparently got super uncomfortable and was just like, they didn't want to answer those questions, and so they just like parted away. They just like pulled the whole project, pulled the plug on it.
Not surprising at all.
Crazy,
typical
right?
Nintendo.
Yeah. So the idea of a movie for Metroid is kind of still something that's up in the air. But again, it just goes to show that like Nintendo is kind of cagey with, you know, actually fleshing out this character. But that's at the point. But again, she's also one of the foundational strong female protagonists in gaming, period. And yet, you know, she has not really had justice done to her character while still also maintaining her status as an icon. Really interesting space. And I wish Nintendo would be a little bit more, or I hope rather that Nintendo is going to be more open with her future.
Me too.
So, cool. All right. Well, speaking of things we want and hope for, what would you like to see from this genre or this franchise in the future? What would be your Metroid game wish list?
Well, you know, the first 5 games are going to be done. The story arc is done. So Metroid Prime 4 will come out. I'm sure it'll star Samus Aran, but I think a new person, a new thing, a new direction that's still like it's in the Metroid world, maybe a new character, something to refresh and revitalize. It would seem like the trope everyone wants, the open world, like the Breath of the Wildization of Zelda to happen. I would like to see that kind of revolution in Metroid. It doesn't have to be open world. It doesn't need to be exactly like what they're doing with Kirby and the Forgotten Lands and what they've done with Pokemon Arceus and Zelda, because that seems like they're just copying, pasting, and that might not work for Metroid. But something like that, like innovate the whole thing. Let's not just do 2D or, you know, first-person shooter. Maybe we do an over-the-shoulder, third-person type action game like Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima type Metroid. I don't know, something different. It's just like, here's a whole new perspective of the world and someone else that's someone else. You know, it'd be awesome. I would love to see that. Yeah, you basically nailed exactly what I was looking for. Is, I mean, granted, I think that of all the between Kirby and Pokemon, I think that the Nintendo franchise that is begging for proper open world treatment, other than Zelda, would be Metroid. And I say that only because the emphasis, you know, what do you think of when you think of open world games? Like, primarily, what is the single most important gameplay element in an open world game? Exploration. Yeah, the world. Yeah.
Bar none. And again, Metroid has been innovating in that space for a long time, a much longer time than maybe any other game except for Zelda. So yeah, I would love to see, I would personally love to see a properly done open world Metroid game with an emphasis on, again, finding the right tools you need to explore places. Like, that is what Metroid's been about. That's what the Metroidvania genre is all about. Let's see it in a big, vast open world. That would be awesome. That said, I would also be fine with a limited open world like that of God of War, where there are open elements with linear portions too. I would be fine with that. Yeah, the caveat with the whole open world thing is that part of what makes Metroid special is that the isolation and the claustrophobia of the world as you like drill into a planet, as you do explore new areas. It's dark, you're alone, and it's not open. Where, like, if an open world is happening, you have a sun or like lighting, maybe it wouldn't work. And I feel like the cross between both of the compromise is what Returnal did, because Returnal nailed it. Yeah. And that's like the linear open world. That's kind of like God of War. So obviously Returnal is procedurally generated. Maybe it's not obvious to you, but it is. Yeah. Listener. Sorry, I didn't mean to say obvious. So Returnal is like procedurally generated levels where like each segment of the world is kind of twisted. Like every time it's a different combination of the same kind of selection of levels, like a pool. And we have like Jedi Fallen Order, I think, is the perfect model for what you're talking about with God of War, Jedi Fallen Order, Yeah, multiple planets with some linearity, but also some open spots as well with exploration.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's probably what you look at.
Honestly, I wouldn't. Again, number one, I would be totally fine with a claustrophobic open. I think that they could do claustrophobic and open at the same time.
I hope so. That's what I'd love to see.
An open world doesn't necessarily have to mean vast and literally go in any direction. As long as it's it can have the any direction part, but that any direction could still be very limited and narrow and claustrophobic. That'd be fine. Heck, but I'd be okay with them doing maybe not a full-blown roguelike Metroid game, but at the very least with the procedural generated aspect of it, where certain triggers, whether it's death or other triggers, there are certain triggers that will reorient the world.
That would be wild.
That would be nuts. Yeah, and that would be totally a Metroid. Like, I would fit right along in the vibe of Metroid. I, too, would love to see third-person, kind of behind-the-shoulder perspective. I think that would be a great marriage of being able to finally, again, see Samus again. But we've gotten so much better with third-person, over-the-shoulder shooters in the last few years that would look great and feel great. And but at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, the first-person shooter games are begging for the VR treatment, like being able, especially as like more haptic stuff is starting to come out, like being able to get like, can you imagine having like a controller that was the arm cannon and like it like having haptic feedback every time you fired it, like pulses against your arm? Like there's so many possibilities of just giving the feel and vibe of being Samus in the suit, and I can't think of many other games that would be more perfectly suited to that level of immersion than Metroid. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. That's where I'd like to see it go.
Me too.
So
let's go.
Let's do it. Metroid, make it happen, Nintendo. So great. Well, that's the show. We want to hear your thoughts on Metroid. Everything Metroid. Do you love the franchise? Do you hate the franchise? What do you love about it if you love it? What do you hate about it if you hate it? What are your favorite experiences? Your first experiences? What do you want to see from Metroid in the future? Everything that we talked about here is fair game, and we want to hear your feedback and thoughts on it. So Termite, remind them once again, the listeners, where they can discover those things if they want to.
The easy-to-remember location is 80BITPodsmash, 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website with links to all of our social media outlets and podcast platforms such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, etc. We have an RSS feed you can throw into any third-party app you would like, so please let us know if we don't exist on a platform of your choice, and we will put ourselves there just for you. And you can do that through our social media outlets. Again, the links are all on our website: Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, and we have a Discord server. The links are in all of our show notes for that, so check us out, add us, comment, like, share, subscribe, give us a review, any of those things that help us to become more popular so that we can grow our community. You guys can interact with more people, guys and gals.
Yes. All right, so next week, we're kind of trying to ride the hype of a new release, and October this year just happens to be some back-to-back releases. For better or for worse, Back 4 Blood is coming out next week, and so next Monday we're going to be doing a developer profile on Turtle Rock, and the more I looked into Turtle Rock, the more I was like, I really want to do a developer profile on them because they've got some interesting stuff going on there. So yeah, we'll be doing Turtle Rock in honor of Back 4 Blood's release, and we'll talk about those similarities. Anyways, so those are the next episodes that are coming up on October 18th, so we'll talk to you then.
And we'll see you next week.